Welcome to Stage 3 of our UbD unit plan. Stage 3 is devoted to the learning plan, the summary of key learning events and instruction. And remember, this is not going to provide all the detail which your daily lesson plan would. This is going to provide an overview, which will hopefully accompany me, perhaps a folder, either hard copy or digital folder, which would have the supporting documents going along with it. Depending on where you are on your unit planning process, you may not have those in place yet, but it is certainly something you'd want to be working towards. In your teaching career, you've probably heard the term curriculum, instruction, and assessment. And the UbD template actually touches on all three of those concepts. Stage 1 talks about curriculum. That is the what of our teaching. This is what we're going to teach. This is also kind of a little bit of the why are we going to teach it. Why? Because of transfer, because we want to have students be able to independently use their learning. In Stage 2 in evidence, we're going to talk about, well, how are we going to assess it? How are we going to know that the students are actually meeting the goals which we have set for them? And also, at what level are they meeting those goals? Are they doing it fully, with support? Are they going above and beyond? That's all what we want to determine as we talk about assessment. In Stage 3 is a learning plan. That is, we know what we want to teach. We have an idea of what success looks like. How are we going to get students to that point? So I'm going to begin putting together a learning plan. And this is something which I will certainly revise, probably yearly, as I find things which work and don't work. And I may, of any part of the UbD template, this is the one I think is probably the most likely to be changed. Now, some of you, just as a reference, may occasionally hear of something called Where To. Where To is a acronym which can be used to structure your learning plan. That's great. It's a really good process. So if you're familiar with Where To, feel happy to use that. But it is not a requirement. I'm going to go through in this case and basically just do a very simple chronological ordering of what my learning plan would be. And I am going to start with anticipatory activity, also sometimes known as the hook. And mine is going to be watching bad home videos from YouTube. Discuss what makes a professional videographer. And then I am going to do a demonstration of setting up camera on tripod, zoom, focus, and record, followed by guided student practice. And then I'm going to assign Chapter 3 on camera operations from the Zettel book. That's the book I'm using. Then my next day, I might have another anticipatory activity. And how much detail you go into here is a little bit fluid. I really like anticipatory activities, so I do like to include them in my learning plan. I'm going to actually look at some of the, look at poor examples of photography and discuss. Very similar to what we did with the videos. And I'm going to do a demonstration on setup and use of still camera. We did the video camera yesterday, so here we're going to do the still camera. Followed by guided student practice. And I'm going to introduce concept of exposure, which I didn't do yesterday. But I'm going to add something new today because there is some similarity between video and still cameras. I'm going to introduce a concept of exposure to the students today. And then I'm going to have assign chapter 4 on lenses and exposure, which I don't know if these chapters actually exist in this book. I am making this up for the purpose of the lesson. And again, that'll also be from my Zettel book. Then the next step in this, which I'm going to have the students do, is going to be the hands-on and written camera quiz / test, because before they send them out to use this equipment unsupervised, I want them to actually have completed this. Then we will do the fall photo collage. 3 days, including 1 day of peer critique. So we're going to do 2 days of production and 1 day of critiquing. And then what I might do to break things up is I would probably go through and I would do my camera selection activity, which includes, let's put a little bit more information. This is research and select a video camera given a particular budget. And again, for this, there is a student assignment sheet. I am going to give them a student assignment sheet for this activity, which is going to have the date, the description of the activity, all the various criteria I want them to meet on that. But there is some teacher choice in that. So this is an example of an activity, but I'm not going to give you all of the information on it. And then my big summative activity for this whole thing is going to be the simple process video, because a simple process video will incorporate selecting the right equipment, creating shots which are going to have, as we mentioned up here, having meaning and purpose, that it will need to be properly exposed. You'll need to use a tripod. They'll need to sign up the equipment to do that, which actually, as I'm looking at this now, is probably up here. I need to do overview of classroom equipment sign out procedures. I need to teach that. I haven't taught that. If I'm going to assume students can do that, I need to. If I'm not going to assume students are going to do that, if I'm going to know they can do it, I need to have that done here. And as you can see in this process, I had my simple process video as my summative or concluding capstone project. And I'm going to give them 4 days to work on that, including critique, okay? And I may want to go into, if I want to give more detail on that, I could maybe put a sub-bullet over here, which would talk about check in on progress at day 2. And maybe, let's see, maybe I even have, maybe that goes down here. Oops, okay. Delete. And in-class lesson and completion on basic storyboard. I want them to storyboard it before they go out there and shoot, which is basically a little cartoon which shows what they're going to shoot. So they have a plan. We're going to check in on their progress at day 2, and then we'll do our critique. Critique and evaluation, including student self-evaluation of project, will be the end. So this is my learning plan, and this is, again, something I just made up on the fly here, but we are dealing with We're going to introduce this by showing examples of what a video maybe shouldn't look like and talk about what do we want a video to look like. I'm going to show them how to do some of these activities. I'm going to have them practice it while I'm walking around, giving them some assistance. I'm going to talk to them about how to sign out the equipment, and I'm going to have them do some reading on it. I may or may not assign homework to this. In this case, I didn't, which I would say would then follow up with do now related to reading maybe the next day. Then the next day we'll do anticipatory activity. We'll look at the same thing but with photography. I will go through the use of our still cameras. I'd introduce a new concept. I'm going to weave in exposure now. And then I'll give them a chapter 4 on lens and exposure from the Zettel book. And again, I might follow up, maybe in this case with an in-class discussion. I could have done a quiz. I could have done a number of different things. I could give them a homework assignment. At this point, they've been doing some practicing. I want them to at least do the written quiz. Maybe I've let them practice another day before giving them the hands-on quiz, but the fact is I want them to know this before I send them out with the equipment. They're going to start by doing the still cameras and the photo collage. I'm going to take a break from production and do a little research project with them. And then we're going to summarize this whole unit on basic camera operations through a simple process video. Now, at the end of this, if I was going through and evaluating my students on my state competencies, which are at level 1, 2, 3, or 4, proficiency, the students would likely be at maybe a level 2, some might be at a level 3. They're not going to reach level 4 really until the end of the year. But when I'm evaluating them for this unit, I'm evaluating them at this criteria. This criteria does not necessarily mean that they are doing these things absolutely perfect, that they're doing them like a professional person yet. It means that they can produce an image that is in focus and properly exposed. So that is a standard which I will be looking for more creativity, more challenging type of exposure scenarios as we get later in the year. That is a challenge with the CTE competencies, is that we are looking not just with knowledge but with skill base, and sometimes to master these skills, the students will need to do this activity over and over and over again for months and months and months. It's the difference between a student being able to go through and successfully demonstrate the steps and processes of shooting a free throw in basketball, or being able to hit a free throw every single time. So in this unit, I'm trying to get them to a point where they can walk up to the free throw line, to use the metaphor, show me the proper form, and be getting that in the basket at least a couple times. I do not expect them at this point in the year to be able to go out there and hit a clutch free throw shot with no time left on the clock. By the end of the year, however, my standard would be higher. So this is an overview of UbD using some career technical education standards. There are different interpretations of what UbD might look like, but I think this is going to give you a document which you can move forward on, a document which you can critique, and something which would be very helpful to a person who is trying to understand, first of all, what it is that you're teaching, or trying to fill in for you and actually delivering your lesson, because they know, here's the process the person used, here are some of the assessments they used to judge that, and here are the overall standings. Now, while these might change, a new teacher might come in and say, well, I would rather do a different kind of video than a simple process video. I would hope that they wouldn't really be changing these transfers. That this idea that we're using and selecting video or recording equipment to purposely capture moving and still images would be pretty universal. I hope you found these helpful. And again, any process where you can go through and look at your curriculum is helpful. The last part of this is to take what you have done and share this with your peers and get feedback from them and see where they think you are strong and see where they think maybe you can do some revisions and edit. That peer tuning, as we call it, is a really key process which will help you make sure you have a great UbD lesson plan. Thank you.